I had always considered myself generous, especially when it came to family. My cousin Olivia and her fiancé Ethan were getting married, and when they started planning the wedding, I could see the stress on their faces. They didn't have the funds for a big celebration, and honestly, they deserved it. They were a couple who had been through a lot. Olivia had supported Ethan through a tough time with his business, and he had always been there for her. So when they started talking about the wedding, I knew I wanted to help. Without hesitation, I offered them $22,000 to make their dream wedding a reality. It wasn't a huge amount for me, but I knew it would make a world of difference for them. Olivia was beyond grateful, and Ethan, though a little hesitant at first, accepted the offer. We were family after all. They promised me that I would be included in everything, and I was excited to see how they would use the money to create a day they would always remember. As the wedding day approached, I was looking forward to it more than I had anticipated. There had been some tension within the family, but I was hoping this would be a time to mend some wounds. I imagined it would be a beautiful day filled with love, laughter, and unity. However, things started to take a strange turn a few days before the wedding. I received a message from Olivia. It wasn't what I expected, not at all. The message simply read, "Hey, we're so excited to see you at the wedding. One thing though, we'd love it if you could come alone. Please don't bring your wife." I stared at the screen, reading it over and over again. My heart sank a little, but I couldn't quite understand why they would ask me not to bring my wife. We'd been married for over 10 years, and she had always been a part of family events. Was it something personal? Did they have an issue with her? I couldn't help but feel a bit confused and hurt. But as I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, something inside me clicked. I wasn't upset anymore. In fact, I couldn't help but smile. The audacity of it, the sheer audacity to ask me that after everything I had done for them, it was almost comical. I had given them $22,000 to make their wedding happen, and now they were telling me that my wife wasn't welcome. It was a moment of realization. I thought about how often I had put family first, how I had always been the one to help when things got tough. But this time I realized I didn't need to be a doormat. I wasn't going to let anyone take advantage of me, even if they were family. Instead of getting upset or sending a snarky reply, I decided to play it cool. I sent them a simple response, "Got it? I'll be there." That was it. No explanation, no excuses. Just that. When the day of the wedding arrived, I showed up without my wife as requested. I watched the ceremony unfold with a calm smile on my face. The entire day felt a bit off though. Olivia and Ethan were polite, but I could see the tension between us. They tried to pretend everything was fine, but there was something in their eyes, a sense of guilt or discomfort. It was clear they knew they had overstepped. As the evening wore on, I couldn't help but notice the little things. Ethan seemed distracted, Olivia was quieter than usual, and the whole atmosphere was a little forced. The guests who didn't know about the drama saw it as a beautiful celebration, but I saw the cracks starting to show. They thought they had gotten away with something, but I knew better. By the end of the night, I realized that this was a turning point for me. I wasn't going to let people take advantage of my kindness anymore. I had given them a substantial amount of money to make their wedding day perfect, but in return, they had shown me a side of themselves I couldn't ignore. I left the wedding that night with a sense of peace. I didn't feel anger or betrayal, I felt liberated. I had done my part, and I wasn't going to let their actions define me. As I walked away, I smiled again. Not because I was happy with how things turned out, but because I knew I had learned a valuable lesson about boundaries. I wouldn't let anyone take my generosity for granted again. A few days after the wedding, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. I tried to tell myself it wasn't a big deal, that family dynamics could be messy sometimes, but the truth was, the whole situation had left me unsettled. It wasn't just the way they treated me, it was the realization that I had let myself be taken for granted for far too long. I decided to reach out to Olivia. I hadn't spoken to her since the wedding, and though part of me wanted to just let it all go, I knew that wouldn't do either of us any good in the long run. Family is complicated, and pretending like nothing had happened wasn't going to fix anything. I called her one afternoon and she picked up on the second ring. There was a brief silence before she spoke, and I could hear the nervousness in her voice. "Hey, Uncle Mike. How are you?" "Doing well, Olivia," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I wanted to talk to you about the wedding." She sighed, and I could tell she had been expecting this conversation. "I figured you might. Look, I know things were a little off, but I just want you to know I'm really grateful for everything you did. The money, the support. It really meant a lot to us." I felt a knot in my stomach as she spoke, but I kept my composure. "I'm glad I could help, Olivia. But I think there's something we need to clear up. The message you sent me asking me to come alone. Can you explain that? There was a long pause, and I could hear her breathing deeply as if she was weighing her words. Mike, it wasn't personal. We just had some family issues with certain people. There were some things we didn't want to make a scene about, and we didn't want any extra drama. I'm really sorry if it hurt your feelings. I didn't mean for it to come across that way. I listened closely, but there was something about her explanation that didn't sit right. She was avoiding the real issue. She wasn't admitting that they had crossed a line or acknowledged the way I felt. She was justifying their actions as if the money I gave them had somehow made me less entitled to expect basic respect. Olivia, I get that weddings can be stressful, but I don't think it's too much to ask for a little honesty, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't want to be treated like I'm just a bank when it's convenient. I'm family too. There was another long silence, and for a moment, I thought she wasn't going to respond. But then she spoke, her voice quieter now. I'm really sorry, Mike. I should have been more upfront with you. I know I messed up. I just didn't want to cause a rift with anyone else, and I thought it would be easier this way. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Olivia, I think you need to realize that honesty and respect are what hold a family together, not money. If you can't be real with me, then I'm not sure where we stand anymore. She was quiet for a while, and when she spoke again, her voice was filled with emotion. I don't want to lose you, Uncle Mike. I really don't. I messed up and I'm sorry. Weeks passed and I tried my best to move on. I didn't hear from Olivia or Ethan much after our phone conversation, and honestly that was fine by me. I knew they needed time to process everything too, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to go back to the way things were. There was still that lingering sense of discomfort, something I couldn't shake. I had always prided myself on being the rock in the family, the one who was there for everyone no matter what. But now I realized that sometimes, being the strong one meant standing up for yourself, drawing boundaries even if that meant distance. It was a Saturday afternoon when I received a message from Olivia. I hesitated for a moment before opening it. The last thing I wanted was another half-hearted apology or more justifications. But when I saw what she had written, I felt a wave of mixed emotions flood over me. Hey, Uncle Mike. I've been thinking a lot about our conversation and I want to make things right. Ethan and I both do. I know I messed up and I understand if you need more time, but I wanted to invite you to dinner next weekend. Just the three of us. No one else. I promise it won't be awkward. We just want to talk and make things better. I took a deep breath before replying. I hadn't expected this kind of gesture and part of me felt wary. Could things really be fixed with one dinner? Could we heal what had been broken with a simple conversation? I wasn't sure. But I also knew that avoiding it would only make everything worse. I typed back, all right, let's do it. I'll come next weekend. The days leading up to the dinner felt strange. I found myself replaying the entire situation in my mind, everything from offering the money to that message to the wedding itself. I thought about what had changed and whether this dinner would even be enough to repair the damage. Was I willing to let go of the hurt for the sake of family? Or would it always linger in the background, making things awkward every time we were together? When the day finally arrived, I tried to prepare myself for whatever was to come. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I knew that this wasn't going to be easy. I had dressed casually, wanting to avoid any formality. It wasn't about appearances, it was about figuring out what was really going on with Olivia and Ethan, and seeing if we could come to a real understanding. When I arrived at their place, Ethan greeted me at the door, looking a little nervous, but genuinely happy to see me. He gave me a handshake, but it was clear this wasn't just a formal greeting. He was trying to break the ice. Olivia was right behind him, her face a mix of anxiety and hope. Hey, Uncle Mike, she said softly. Thanks for coming. No problem, I replied, offering a small smile. Let's get this over with. The tension was palpable, but we made our way into the dining room, where a meal had been laid out. Nothing too extravagant, just a home-cooked dinner, which I appreciated. The atmosphere felt different from the wedding. It wasn't about show or impressing anyone. It was about trying to fix something broken. We sat down and for the first few minutes no one said much. Ethan looked down at his plate, and Olivia kept glancing at me, as if searching for some sign that everything would be okay. I finally decided to break the silence. So, what's been going on? I asked. I can't pretend like I understand everything. The wedding, the message, it just didn't feel right. Why did you ask me to come alone? Olivia's face flushed as she took a deep breath, her eyes brimming with emotion. I was scared, Uncle Mike, she admitted quietly. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I felt like there were too many people involved, too many things hanging over our heads. We had family drama, issues with other guests, and honestly, I didn't want any more conflict. I thought if I just asked you to come alone, it would be easier. Ethan nodded, adding, I never meant to make it so uncomfortable, Mike. The whole thing just spiraled. We were so focused on the wedding that we didn't stop to think about how we were treating you. It wasn't right. I listened carefully, not interrupting, letting them explain their side. When they were done, I was silent for a moment, processing everything. There was a part of me that wanted to be angry, to demand answers, but I also knew this wasn't the time for that. They were being honest, and that meant something. I get that things were complicated, I said finally. But the thing is, family shouldn't be about avoiding issues or sweeping things under the rug. If there's something bothering you, we should talk about it. That's the only way we're going to move forward. I'm not just a donor. I'm family. And I shouldn't have to feel like I'm being excluded or treated as if I don't matter. Olivia nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I know, Uncle Mike. And I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have made you feel that way. You've always been there for me, and I don't want to lose that. Ethan, too, seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. We messed up, Mike. And we're sorry. We really are. I looked at them both, their faces filled with sincerity. There was still hurt inside me, but I also saw the potential for healing. Maybe this wasn't the easiest path, but it was a start. I had always believed in the power of family, even when it was messy, and I wasn't ready to let go of that just yet. I'm not sure if we can go back to what things were like, I said slowly. But I'm willing to try if you are. We just need to be real with each other from here on out. Olivia smiled through her tears and Ethan nodded. We'll do better, Uncle Mike. We promise. We spent the rest of the evening talking, not just about the wedding or the money, but about everything that had been left unsaid. It wasn't a perfect conversation, but it was honest, and that meant more than anything. By the time I left their house, I felt like something had shifted. It wasn't all fixed, but it was a start. And that was enough for me for now. It had been a few weeks since that weekend in the cabin, and I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of contentment whenever I thought about it. Things had truly come full circle. Olivia and Ethan had proven, in ways big and small, that they valued not only what I had done for them but who I was as a person. I had spent so many years watching them grow up, and to see them now, with all their mistakes and all their efforts to improve, filled me with a quiet pride. They had become people I could trust again, people who truly understood the importance of family, not just in the good times but also when it was hard. Life slowly fell back into a rhythm. We still had our ups and downs like any family, but it no longer felt like there was this looming cloud over us. It wasn't about pretending that nothing had happened. It was about acknowledging the past and choosing to move forward together. One day, out of the blue, I received a message from Ethan. It was short, but it made me smile when I saw it. Hey, Uncle Mike, we've been talking. We want to do something special for you. How about a family dinner next weekend? Just the three of us. No big plans, just a night to celebrate how far we've come. We'd love for you to be there. I paused for a moment, feeling a sense of warmth in my chest. There were no extravagant gestures or promises of anything extraordinary, just a simple offer to celebrate, to mark how much we had all grown. I didn't need anything fancy. I didn't need a grand celebration. I had what mattered most. A family that was finally healing, that was genuinely trying to be better, and that was starting to rebuild the trust we once had. I replied with a quick message, sounds perfect. I'll be there. When I walked into their house the following weekend, it felt different. There was no awkwardness, no tension, just the smell of home-cooked food and the sound of laughter in the air. It was the kind of night I had always hoped for. We sat around the dinner table, shared stories, and made jokes like we always had. There were no resentments, no hidden agendas, just family. As we finished dinner, Ethan stood up, raising his glass. To family. To new beginnings. And to Uncle Mike, thank you for always being there, even when it was hard. I raised my glass, a sense of pride welling up inside me. To family, I echoed. To all the things that matter. In that moment, I realized how much I had learned over the past year. Life was messy and people weren't perfect. But family wasn't about perfection. It was about being there for each other, even when things went wrong, even when it seemed like the distance between you and the ones you loved was too wide to cross. It was about showing up, even when it was uncomfortable. And when you did that, when you were real and honest with each other, the bonds you shared became stronger than any mistake or misunderstanding. As the night went on, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. The wedding, the misunderstandings, the mistakes, the reconciliations, it all felt like a distant memory now. It wasn't about that moment anymore. It was about who we were now and who we were becoming. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace. Sometimes, the hardest moments in life lead to the most meaningful transformations. And as I sat there, surrounded by the people I loved, I realized that despite everything we had been through, we had come out on the other side stronger and more connected than ever before. The road ahead wasn't going to be without challenges. But as long as we stayed real with each other, as long as we didn't take each other for granted, I knew that we could handle anything life threw our way. And that was enough. I could tell she was sincere, but I also knew that things couldn't just go back to the way they were. The trust had been shaken, and it would take time to rebuild. "I appreciate your apology, Olivia," I said slowly. "But it's going to take some time for me to process everything. I just need space." There was a soft sniffle on the other end of the line. "I understand. And I'll give you the space you need. But I hope that, eventually, we can fix this." I hung up the phone with a heavy heart. Part of me wanted to forgive her right away, but I knew I needed to stand firm. Giving them money had never been about buying my place in their lives. It had been about love and support. But that support had to be mutual, and it had to be based on trust. I spent the next few weeks reflecting on what had happened. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about boundaries, respect, and knowing when to walk away. I had done enough to prove I cared, but now I had to prove to myself that I didn't need anyone else's approval to feel valued. It was a tough pill to swallow, but I knew it was for the best. No one, not even family, had the right to treat me like I was invisible or disposable. As I moved forward, I promised myself I wouldn't forget the lesson I had learned. Generosity is a beautiful thing, but it needs to come with respect and mutual understanding. I wasn't sure if things with Olivia and Ethan would ever go back to normal, and maybe that was okay. I had given them what they needed in that moment, but now it was time for me to focus on my own well-being. And honestly, that smile I had worn the day of the wedding? It was no longer just a smile of amusement. It was a smile of confidence, of knowing that I had made the right choice, even if it was a hard one.